No one could convince me that this isn't my version of the Interstellar cornfield chase scene, especially with that gap, that rift. I did film in front of this in my previous free flow talk, but I wanted to get the cinematic camera out and have a little fun with this. Have a little fun with the topic that I want to talk about. I am going to position the camera in front of the wheat here. Or should I do it in front of here? Let me see what looks nice. I'm deciding on the spot as I film. I think over here would be nice. Right. I have no idea how further back I have to go. I need to figure that out as well. I do apologize for the delay, but I'm hoping this video, what I have to talk about, will be worth it. Does that give me a bit of height? Let's try this now. Yeah, okay. I'll take that. Yeah? Okay. Interstellar is probably one of my favorite films to exist. It shouldn't be a surprise that I would gravitate towards Christopher Nolan being my ultimate favorite director, because he's able to provide such a compelling, intensive narrative on some of the most simplest, arguably simplest, scientific theories in such a compelling way. It's so artistic, so cinematic. He really truly delivers it to the big screen in ways that had not been done before, and I guess that makes him one of the greatest movie directors of all time, whether you understand his films or not. I am one of those that understand it the more I watch it, naturally, and I love it every single time. And Interstellar is actually one of my favorite films, and yet I've only watched it twice. It's not something that I like to saturate my mind with, because the two times that I'd watched it, one was when I was a bit younger and probably unable to understand it, but intuitively I kind of got the gist of the theories, the connection that I had to it, but I couldn't articulate it or intellectualize it. And then I recently rewatched it a few months ago, and I literally cried. I mean, I cried both of the times, but I understood it more, because that big gap from when I first watched it and then the recent time I've watched it, I've obviously gone through my own path, and quantum entanglement is probably the most interested quantum physics theory that I'm interested in. And it's something that I resonate and feel this connection to, and it's indescribable. I am yet to figure out why I'm so emotionally charged and attached to it. But nevertheless, quantum entanglement, there are a lot of notes that I've made. Did a nice big diagram about a year or two ago, and I haven't shared it because I want to be able to intellectualize it into, the ideal would be in a book. I would love to write. I I have no capacity to commit to that right now, nor the intellect for it. There are a lot of things I still need to study and research, but Interstellar is the pivotal film that really encapsulates this type of theory that I want to bring into a new light. But what I am going to do today is shed it into a new teaching, a new perspective that we can all benefit from and be inspired by. I don't remember the quotes by word. My memory isn't the greatest. It is something I need to work on. So I have got my phone to sort of, I don't want to paraphrase and rephrase the actual dialogue because they are great in itself. One minute. Quantum entanglement, for those that don't know or would like a little refresh, is essentially two atoms, particles, that have an effect on each other no matter the distance, space, or time. They're entangled. Einstein himself called it spooky action at a distance. And I do have previous videos on quantum physics where I go into a bit more detail about quantum entanglement and express my opinions as much as I could on there. Einstein himself sort of... Quantum mechanics and quantum physics was already a new field that was supposedly ahead of Einstein's time. He already did his life's work with relativity and photoelectric effects, etc. You know, he already did his bit. And so what Niels Bohr, Werner Heisenberg, Oppenheimer, all these great physicists, Schrödinger, they introduced the next level, the next field of, physics. And that's already been expressed in my videos as well. And so there were already theories that Einstein himself couldn't truly grasp, even though he did contribute it, whether he wanted to or not, contribute towards it. But I think specifically quantum entanglement, I want to say he was in fear of it. Not that I knew him personally, but the impression I get from the research that I've done is that he just sort of shied away from it because it just opens a whole new ground that any of us could possibly fathom, and yet there is something there. The fact that we can connect to something ahead of time and space, because we are made up of atoms, so it does include us. It's not like atoms are so separate from us that it's like it doesn't apply. We are part of the magic, we are part of the building blocks of reality and nature and this intricately designed system, whether you want to believe it's intricately designed or not by a creator, etc. Let's not go there, but two atoms, two particles, no matter the distance. And Christopher Nolan portrayed that in such a beautiful, heartbreaking, heartwarming story between a father and his daughter through the Tesseract Library. Library? Oh, that's an American pronunciation. Library. That he was able to communicate through the past of his daughter when he was younger, through Morse code, through the books on her shelf. And everyone thought she was crazy and that she was seeing ghosts, and ghosts aren't real, but it was a very great example of quantum entanglement. And the theme of love is intertwined into it, because I'm just going to bring out a quote from Brand, which is the character Anne Hathaway plays. She's a scientist. And it's very interesting. I don't know if it was intentional by Christopher Nolan, but, Brand being the female figure of the film, a female scientist, raised by her dad, who was also a renowned scientist, played by Michael Caine. Absolutely adore Michael Caine. Had to put that in there. Being a female, and she's the one that brings up the concept of love into this film, into this story, with the ideation of quantum entanglement, you know, across spiritual traditions and religions, the divine feminine is a strong character, especially in the yin-yang scenario, where women are more intuitively guided. They have this... They're more feelings than logic. They're more of the right-hand side, the creative side of the brain, so to speak. I'm just generalizing, of course. But it is believed that Mother Nature, the relax, the attraction, everything comes in. There's no sort of action. I deviate, but she says in the film, love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends time and space. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever fallen in love, whether it's in a romantic partner relationship, or whether it's a parent and child, a brother and sister, a friend. Even, I always say, because I have a pet cat, and I am always amazed by how we're able to communicate love despite us being completely different species. And that can resonate with other pets like dogs, birds, etc. We can't even communicate English or talk. And yet the love that we have for each other, her name's Layla, it feels like it transcends through time and space. It's indescribable. How can we quantify this communication? When she gives me cuddles, etc., when I feed her, it's based on actions, perhaps, yes. But, I always entertain the idea of quantum entanglement as a sort of soulmate type connection. I like to romanticize it. And soulmate doesn't have to be your life partner, and it doesn't have to be just one in your life, the one and only. And even in Islam, God says we had created you in pairs. In the Quran it says. And I think most people have taken that as a literal reference to a spouse and its partner, husband and wife, gender roles. And I do agree with that to a certain extent, but I like to give the metaphysical perspective of it could be any sort of relationship. We're created in pairs in terms of each atom has a pair where it's intrinsically linked to that. No matter the time or distance or speed, it will forever be linked. And I did mention this in a video. There is a Japanese myth or a tale where two lovers are connected by a piece of string, and no matter how further apart they are, they will always be connected. And that is so beautiful. That is so romantic. Why can't we romanticize life like that? What if our lack of romanticizing life like this is just us being further away from the building blocks of reality that could be love itself? And I like to entertain that theory. I often entertain that theory. It's very much my philosophy. And what's incredible is it doesn't have to be someone outside of you. It can also be a love letter to yourself. Self-love can transcend time and space. And it's, how can you feed that back into yourself? Well, it's the version of who you are now connecting to the version you would like to be, or maybe a past version of yourself that you cherish, your inner child, the younger version of yourself, etc. It's so incredibly powerful to think like this, because it really does reflect on your actions, and it can dictate how you choose to see things and perceive things around you in life, whether it's circumstances, people, conditions. And then when you frame your thoughts around it and stay firm in it, you can consistently maintain that feeling of abundance and love within yourself and around yourself. I deviate though. But there is a conversation between Brand and Cooper. Cooper is played by Matthew McConaughey. Incredibly well-deserved performance. Brand says, maybe we've spent too long trying to figure all this out with theory of their mission. And Cooper is trying to remind her that you're a scientist, Brand. Science is supposed to be with logic, but science has always been a way to translate what was the unthinkable or unexplainable, right? But you have to admit and accept that the explainable, the magic, whatever you want to call it, was there to begin with, and we are only, as a human species, intellectualizing and rationalizing it. And there's different ways of, you're a scientist, at a time, and it still is the case that there are more male scientists than women. It's very much a logical, masculine-sided type profession, and so he's reminding her of that. So then she says, so listen to me, when I say that love is not something we invented, because it isn't, it's observable, powerful, it has to mean something. Now, in modern society, women are often branded as, lovey-dovey, spiritual, feels too much, all these emotions, and they are coming and going in waves, etc. And men are the calm, rationally minded, stable. And whether there might be some truth to that biologically, I think this is where women are known to have a stronger intuition, the divine feminine energy, all these terminologies. But I do plan to look into that a lot more in the future, because I believe there are some importance to these gender roles, these two gender roles. But back to the topic of, love isn't something that we invented. I'm sure if any of you have experienced heartbreak, especially in the process of dealing with them, you'd have wished that love was something we could invent and we can just turn it off like a light switch. I am laughing. Obviously, it's not necessarily a laughing matter, but, in the grand scheme of things, we can all agree that we can't help but, have a love and appreciation for things, whether it's materialistic things, in people, in ourselves, in what we achieve, in our professions, in what we do. It's inevitable. And I know there are some people that are asexual and, psychopaths are supposedly not able to embody the state of love, apparently. I could be wrong. But I just think maybe these kind of people just haven't... I mean, not everything has to be sexual in terms of, love, but... I just think if you haven't experienced it yet, it's because you haven't found what is destined or meant for you, so to speak. And it is observable. Look at the actions that we emit from having love for things and people in our lives. And it is powerful because it gives us such a strong emotional charge. It's such a powerful driving force. It indeed has to mean something. And Cooper recognizes that too. He says, love has meaning, yes. Social utility, social bonding, child rearing. But then Brand kind of adds on to that and she says, we love people who've died. Where's the social utility in that? Emotions like grief, loss, they all stem from the root of love and obviously have many branches, many leaves of all these different emotions, good and bad. You can have excitement, you can have grief, you can have pain, loss, you can have motivation. And it's all from the root. And this is why I'm so convinced that love as a frequency is what reality is built from. That was the first lesson I had from my first trip. Reality is a love letter to yourself. What if everything was designed to love you? So even when you experience hardships, it's because they are lessons for you to come back to yourself. When you are a parent and you discipline your child, it's not because you want, well, hopefully, not because you want to torture your child and you're sadistic. It's because you want that child to grow and to become a better person. What if that same concept was delivered to you with everything around you? And I've said this before, the romanticizing the fact that gravity is holding me down, the ground that I walk on is lifting me up. The leaves are producing oxygen for me to breathe. My cat gives me cuddles, my parents, I mean, not everyone's in the same privileged position, I understand that. But what if it was destined that we all had a starting point specifically designed for a purpose for us to grow and excel from? It's all relative. It's all relative. I do digress. So back to Interstellar, because there's so much we can unpack from this film. Murphy's Law. So Cooper's child, the daughter that he essentially has quantum entanglement with, Murphy's Law is basically like a humorous little play on, like, theory, sort of, that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. It's quite a pessimistic framework. And so Murphy, in the film, she says, "Why did you and Mom name me after something that's bad?" And I find this really interesting that Christopher Nolan did that take, whether it was intentional or not, but I'd like to think it was. And he said, "Well, we didn't," Cooper said that. And then Murphy's like, "Murphy's Law?" And then Cooper says, "Murphy's Law doesn't mean that something bad will happen. It means that whatever can happen will happen, and that sounded just fine to us." It's an incredible foreshadowing to Murph's character, because in the end she's the one that brings her father back and helps save humanity on the edge of crops out being unable to be sustainable, life on Earth being unsustainable anymore, and not being sustainable anymore. And one can argue in the trajectory of the film that it was inevitable that she had to be the one to kind of be the anchor to bring her father back, where he was lost in time and space. No matter the distance and the speed and the time, they were entangled, and it was inevitable to happen. And it's interesting that Cooper had that take, because he's not an optimistic character. He's not entirely pessimistic. He's not to the other role of Matthew McConaughey with Rustin Cole in True Detective, although that is another show I'd love to talk about. But it shows a slight bit of acceptance. There is a word I'm looking for. Non-resistance, and that's powerful. That's something I teach, to not resist to the circumstances and to stand firm in, your beliefs, your actions, your self-authenticity. Whatever can happen will happen. So then there's sort of a belief of fate, or even if one doesn't believe in fate, they can say that as sort of, it is what it is. That is another common modern phrase that I've heard in my lifetime. Acceptance of it. But what if we reframed it for our own purpose? Not to be delusional in the materialistic sense, but in a way of self-belief. You have goals, you have dreams that you really want to fulfill in this lifetime of yours. Why can you not make it into your own version of Murphy's Law? Whatever can happen will happen. Emphasis on can. If it is physically possible, or even if it's not physically possible, in biblical stories, God allegedly split the seas for Moses, okay? Jesus said that whatever he can do, we can do, and greater, and this man moved mountains, quite literally. What if we have developed into a society that have just, over time, capped and limited themselves into believing that the magic doesn't exist, of what is possible? Now, defying the laws of physics, theories of physics keep changing as time goes on because we're still learning more, and the fact that quantum physics is opening the door to the ideation of particles and waves collapsing depending on the observer, depending on so many other theories, quantum entanglement, all the theories have just gone out of my head now. Wave-particle duality collapse, the observer effect, Schrodinger's cat dilemma. Now, if you really have your heart set on living in a world where the sky is pink, you really want to believe that, I am no one to question. And perhaps if we apply this theory that I'm introducing, well, not introducing, but possibly regurgitating, learning amongst my experiences and other theories and research that I've done, if that's truly one of your heart's desires, then whatever can happen will happen. That is an expression of faith and belief. That is an expression of faith and belief. If you believe it can, that is the first step. And the rest will be sorted, because it will happen. It's inevitable. It's entangled on a quantum level. And I know that sounds like wishful thinking and hopeful thinking, but ask anyone that was successful, is successful, and is going to be successful, no matter the circumstances that they've come from, whether it's from a privileged position or an unprivileged position. Why is it that there's no logical, materialistic formula that guarantees everyone's success? Why is it that every single hardworking person doesn't achieve the consensus of success that we've described it? Because it's not a physical formula, it's a spiritual and mental one. You have to believe it can happen first. These people had hope first. They believed in the delusion of themselves. And so long as, because I'm not advocating toxic behavior and schizophrenic behavior, but then again, schizophrenia is a topic I'd like to eventually dive into, because I don't know much about it. And I always wonder how it plays on with this whole manifestation, reality creation kind of thing. But it all starts with self-belief, and that is how everyone started, no matter the conditions they were faced with, the circumstances, the people. I'm sure everyone's got some of this that they can relate to a certain degree, to all sorts of degrees. It is all relative, but in a metaphysical aspect, it all remains the same. So, Murphy's Law, why don't we utilize this? A mixture, a nice balance between Murphy's Law on your terms with the practice of and awareness of love. And I don't mean love in some like grand gesture type of sense. It could be as simple as people in your friendship group want you to go out, but you're not feeling too well, and you don't want to perpetuate that state of feeling, and so you say no to social circumstances to look after yourself. It's as simple as that. That doesn't have to be a grand thing. Someone's making you feel uncomfortable, you want to leave the room. That's an act of self-love. You're really hungry, and you want to lose weight. I'm just giving an example. And there is a borderline between discipline, of course, but that hunger is leading on to you having an adverse effect. So you eat despite your discipline and goal, right? That's an act of self-love. Okay, buying yourself things, popping on a face mask, all those are acts of self-love too. But it's how you perceive things around you. One of the greatest facilitator of love in itself, I believe, is gratitude. And that is something we can learn and all continue to practice. But yeah, there is a video, I believe, I don't know the name of this man, Naval? I can't remember how it was spelt either, so correct me if I'm wrong. I believe in an interview he said, he defines intelligence as these two factors. One, having the ability to know what you want. Two, actually getting it. And intelligence should be measured by that. And you know what? In terms of, the nature of reality and where I'm currently at with my thoughts and beliefs, I actually wholeheartedly believe that. Knowing what you want, realizing if it's actually for yourself or if it's what society, parents, friends, people expect of you or have convinced you that you want, corporate businesses with capitalism and materialistic desires, etc., government with health desires, etc., putting fear into your mind with wars and conflicts around the world. Or knowing what you truly want, something that motivates you and gets you waking up every single morning with some sense of purpose. And, regardless if we truly know the nature of this reality, why on earth would you want to think adversely in yourself? Why, even if we were put on this earth to do jack all, as the phrase goes, you can mellow in that pessimistic mindset, or you can just create your own sense of purpose. And even if it's self-created, it makes one hell of a story. It makes something to write about. And if we all turn to ashes and dust in the end, there are millions, billions of people throughout our time in history that we do not know of, and only a few of the greats get remembered. And if that matters to you, then work for it. That's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'd like to think it's worth living a life, whether you want to document it or not, that is at least in tune with your soul's calling. Again, sounds very spiritual, but I do believe we were put on this earth. Our soul has been put on this earth to experience true desires. And I don't think there are many. I think there are like 3 to 4 main ones, and I've learned that from Joey Lott. And we will be in a perpetual state of rebirth. I don't fully believe it, but I entertain it, this idea of reincarnation, until our soul experiences everything it wants to experience, and then we get out of the game. It's an interesting theory. It's fun. You don't have to, that's the thing with theories, you don't have to fully believe in it like a whole religion and make a whole discipline about it. And it doesn't have to define you. I entertain multiple theories. Whatever, resonates in the moment, whatever I can pick and choose and learn from it. And I know a lot of religions don't like the idea of its followers picking and choosing. If that works for you, that works for you. But I like to always expand and explore, because that's what the universe is doing anyway. It's expanding and contracting. That's possibly what happens during the creation of birth in women. It's very much natural, and I think sorry, just slipped there. And I think society, over time, with corruption, politics, and modernization, not that entire modernization is wrong, but there are a lot of negative elements to it, have confined us into, I guess I'm showing the behind the scenes, but my camera has died. The battery has died, and I think it is because it's in direct sunlight, and so it would easily overheat. And I have spoken a lot in this video, and I just thought, let's just go through this little field. But I guess that is a sign for me that I've said everything that I needed to say, and I would like to end this video with my disclaimer that I'm by no means claiming to be knowledgeable in everything, except that I am in the humble pursuit of wisdom. I'm always trying to extract things and extrapolate things in a way that can actually benefit us all, including myself. And I'd like to be one of the examples that are doing so. So yeah, what should the title of this video be? How to use love and quantum entanglement and Murphy's Law the lighting's not nice here, to achieve your heart's desires. I think I've literally explained that. Whatever can happen will happen. Honestly, take my word for it if you couldn't believe it anywhere else. Stand firm in your imaginal scene of the kind of person you want to be, the kind of things you want to have, the kind of life you want to live, the kind of behaviors around you that you want. stand firm in it, no matter what is shown on the outside, out of your physical awareness. Because the way will pave, it truly will. And I will start to share I don't like to say success stories, because it's like to achieve, to attain, to get, when the concept is we already are everything. One of my favorite affirmations is, I am whole, I lack nothing. I am whole and I lack nothing, because everything is in the eternal now. So, but then there's the duality and paradox of, living in the eternal now, but then experiencing linear time for that experiential way of existing. And the idea is not one is bad, both are great and they coexist and they're both fun. So utilize it and tap into it. But the kingdom of heaven is within, according to the Bible. And so experience everything you want to experience within until you're no longer emotionally attached to it on the outside. When you don't care about the outside, that's when it literally comes in so easily. And that is the thing, that's how powerful love can be, because it can attract so many incredible things in our lives. And the other end of the spectrum is the detriment of creating such huge attachment that it inadvertently, it repels, it pushes back, and we're the ones doing the chasing. We don't have to chase. Our actions that we do in this lifetime should be inspired action from the beliefs that we hold about ourselves and the things around us. But the decisions should be made within. That was a long ending from my disclaimer, but yeah, I do offer mentoring sessions if anyone's interested. Please sign up if you're only interested to actually get help and want support, because I'm happy to do so. And yeah, I'd like to end this video. Is there anything else to waffle about? No, I'm good. Until the next free flow talk. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting.